which is true, which is very true. So I like taking things and I like looking at it in natural realms and what I'm going to get dealing with, but dealing with the presence of the Lord. Now you got to think about this. Here's a boy. He was 16 years old, minding his own business. 16 years old, most boys are doing what their parents told them to do, and that's what he was doing. He was doing exactly what his dad told him to do. Go out and take care of the sheep. Right? So he's taking care of the sheep. As Brother David said, he was picking up the puke and all the other good stuff that comes out of sheep. But it's the truth. It really is the truth. The Bible says, where there's no ox, the crib is clean. And our pastor always said he would soon see a bunch of ox in the crib dirty. Even though I know for a fact, because I knew him, it drove him nuts. It drives me nuts. It really does. It drives me nuts. And I'm not talking about this house. I'm talking my own personal house. Everybody take your own temperature, please. All right? God's just using me today. But you take your own temperature. So you got this boy. He gets anointed. And the very first thing he's doing, he gets anointed. He gets shoved back out in the pasture with all the sheep. And you know the stories. He's killed a bear. He's killed a lion. He's a pretty good fighter. He's a pretty good hunter. Side note. Now I have a son sitting right there. He killed a chipmunk with a bow and arrow. And he was little. And he come and showed the family. Really, he come to show Papa. Papa, look at what I got. And it was like, where did you get that? And it's a little kid's arrow. So we go off, and so we're all up on the deck, and we're talking about it. And lo and behold, not 10 minutes later, he come back with another one. He shot two chipmunks. My dad's been shooting for years through his bedroom window to kill chipmunks. We had a kid who's 10 years old, and he killed two of them with a bow and arrow. I'm not puffing his feathers any, but it's like he's a pretty good hunter. And if you go to his house, he's got a bow and arrow that he stuck on his wall. It's an arrow stuck right into the end of another arrow. He's a pretty good shot. I'll leave it alone. Because God's going to use it. He took something naturally, and he's refining it something spiritually, what's going to happen. Not only in him, but in the house. Because there's a bunch of warriors and a bunch of hunters in here. So you get this boy, he's taking care of everything like I said. Then all of a sudden, he's getting summons to go stand in front of the king. Now, you got to think about this naturally. He's taking care of mom and dad's business. Can I say it that way? And lo and behold, all of a sudden, now he's getting ushered into the presence of the king. If that wasn't terrifying enough, they tell him, now we heard you play, because you can play pretty good. Not only is he a good hunter, he's a good musician. I wonder what school he went to. Brother Kelly always said it this way. I just learned how to play the piano by one finger faith. I wonder if David strummed the harp one finger at a time. And I guess that's how you learn. It isn't like modern days. I guess you can look up on the internet and they'll teach you how to play in 15 minutes, I guess. I don't know. I don't have the time for 15 minutes. But I don't want to learn how to play. Bad experience, but that's all right. So now he's got to play in front of the king to chase out evil spirits. Was possessing the king. I'm just talking about the pressure what was on this boy. You don't think there's pressure? But he must have found something deep inside of him. Listen, can we go this route? The Holy Ghost hasn't even been poured out yet. It's not inside him. The anointing was only put on his head. It's on the outside. But God was working that thing, what got poured on his head, it was working on down to get inside of him. And then all of a sudden, he had to dig deep inside of himself to be able to start playing so much. I guarantee he got lost in the presence of the Lord somewheres. And I don't think he was really worried about evil spirits. I don't think he was really worried about who was watching him. It was just like the song we just sang. Getting lost in his presence. And that getting lost, I wonder if it was just the first time it ever happened to him that it put a hunger in his life so much that he said, Lord, no matter what you bring me through, I am not stopping until I have all of you. Isn't that what it's all about? Isn't it? I mean, we heard about Solomon, right? Solomon, you said today, Ed, he built a temple, and he was talking about rebuilding the temple back in. But you know that all the material that was Solomon got to use, his dad, David, stored up for him. And the Lord told him, listen, you got to, let's think about this for a minute. Here's, Lord, help me with the words. Here's somebody who got so lost in the presence of God that the Lord told him, you ain't building me a house. I wonder if he was devastated. I really believe, Brother Bud, I really believe he's seen the cross. He's seen his seed. Because God gave him a promise, right? Your seed, and I guarantee you he's seen Jesus. And it didn't matter. But he said, it ain't going to change my focus. Because I want my seed to go, to keep going. So he did all he could do in his strength to have everything there so Solomon can do what he had to do. And we know the story about all that. But there had to be a drive, a determination inside of him that nothing is going to hinder him. Nothing's going to stop him. And I feel this way. I feel this way personally. I don't know what really took place when I was 9 years old. But I do know one thing. Something took place. Something took place. We always, this is the way I was raised. Pretty much everybody in this house was raised this way. If somebody can talk you out of it, then it wasn't God. Right? We were taught that. I got one step farther. If your mind can talk you out of it, then it wasn't God. Because I know one thing. You're going to have a battle, and it's not with everybody on the outside. The battle's inside. It really is. The battle is really, it's on the inside. How do you know? Well, we won't even go down that road. Because I know if I'm going through it, everybody else is going through it. I heard Brother Nick say when he shared on Thursday, he said, God, I want to get all this done so I can spend more time in this. Not the computer, but if I had a Bible, the Bible. Right? I would go like this. God, I have all this done. And I do all this. And then I sit back and go, I got more questions now. I got more questions now. And sometimes it's like crazy questions like, really? How do you know? Let's go. Crazy question. We all know about this chapter, right? Chapter 30, 1 Samuel 30. This is a great chapter. We should all know this. It is. There's a lot of famous quotes out of this chapter. I'm going to read it. Lord, yep. I'm going to read it. Lord, if you want me to talk as I read, I will do it that way. 1 Samuel chapter 30, verse 1. This is out of the Amplified Classic. Now when David and his men came home to Ziklag on the third day, God always does everything on threes, right? We all know this thing. Just remember that, the third day, all right? They found that the Amalekites had made a riot on the south and on Ziklag, and they have struck Ziklag and burnt it with fire. Question number 1. Really, I'm thinking, this is how I think. God, I understand the process of what you're bringing David through. And now you got him into a place where, for the second time, he didn't want to deal with the Philistines. So he went to the Philistines. They turned around, they gave him a city. He's living in the city. Now the people he's living under, can we do that? The world, if you want to look at it that way. They tell him, we're going to go to war against your people. And he's going to go to war with them. Crazy thought, isn't it? How many people do you want to go to war with who don't believe exactly the way you believe? I'm guilty. I'm guilty. Because the only ones who believe like I believe are sitting right here inside these four walls. Everybody else is, woohoo. But really, are you willing to go to war with somebody just because they don't believe the way you believe? Now that's one of those things that's gray. No. Because you know what you know, what you know. You know what's right, you know what's not right. You know. All right? We know. And I'm not even going to go down that world. But here, they come home. Now, David has a history with these people who's following him. Every time they went to war, David always left somebody behind to take care of stuff. According to the Bible, it's called the baggage, but we weren't going to go down that road. Me, I call it the people who just want to stay home, take care of business at home. If you want to run out and do all the other stuff where all the lights and the glamour is and all that stuff, have at it. I just soon stay home. I like to stay home, take care of my family, take care of what's around me, take care of what God has me to take care of. But in this situation, out of all the situations up to this point, David did something totally different than he normally does. He took all 600 with him. Question number 2. Why didn't somebody out of the 600, because really it's 601, David is the one. Why didn't the 600 say to David, David, why all of a sudden you're changing this up? We're leaving all the women and the children and whoever else were with them unprotected. it's just a thought. It's just a thought that I'm thinking. But they never did. Or it was never written down. Can I put it that way? But wouldn't that be one of your thoughts? Wait a second. I've been following this guy for all these years, and all of a sudden he's going to change it up. And nobody ever questioned why. This is how loyal his 600 were to him. They trusted him that much that they put their families' lives in jeopardy because of him. Crazy. That's crazy. Just a thought. Here we go. And they had taken the women and all that were there, both great and small, captive. They killed no one. That's a key. This is the key. They killed no one. And they carried them off and went their way. They killed no one, which is absolutely different from what David did. I read this commentary about the history of what was going on. And literally, when David was writing all these other ones, he went in, he killed, the Bible is plain, he went in and killed everybody, women and children, and left nothing behind. He killed them all. But you would thought that, wait a second, these people would do the same thing. But God, your sovereign God, did something different. Basically, this is what he's doing. I'm jumping ahead of myself. He's saving David from David. He did. Because one, he was in a place where he should have never been. He should have never been there. But God allowed him to go through there. And then with all of his crazy thinking, God had to get him to a place where he's got to do something. God sovereignly stepped into his life and changed the whole situation. So here we go. Verse 3. So David and his men came to the town, and behold, it was burned, and all their wives and their sons and their daughters were taken captive. And David and his men, got to love that. Jesus and his men. It's just not regular men. If you look up this word men, it's Ishman. It's a Geber man. It's somebody who's strong. They're just not feeble people. These are people who are willing to fight. They're willing to go to battle. They are. And David and his men lifted up their voices and wept until they had no more strength to weep. I hear Brother Willie's hand in one of his messages he just said about the children of Israel. Right? God didn't move for 400 years, 430 years until there came a cry. There came a cry. And then God stepped in. And you can read all through the process of time through the Bible. God never really did anything until he heard a cry. This is question number 3 or 4, whatever I'm up to now, is why God? Why do we have to wait till something actually happens before we start crying out for you? Because we might not like what takes place before we start to cry. He's given us all this stuff, this whole Bible. What, 66 books in the Bible? Over all these centuries of time for us to learn from their mistakes. Seriously. And I'm as guilty as the next person. I will listen to Brother Ed in Sunday school today, and I'm like, oh my gosh, he's beating me up. But it's not true. He's not beating me up. He's saying what God, the word of the Lord, and if God brings conviction to you, then he's telling you, you better do something. I'm not changing. You better change. I heard my mother not too long ago, in one of our conversations, she said, I don't like changing. She don't like change. And really, none of us likes change, especially if it's totally, like I said earlier, if it's totally cost-grained the way we think. We do not like it. But see, God in His great mercy, He knows the end from the beginning. And He's told us, He's given us all the promises. David had a promise. David had a promise. God gave him a promise. You're going to be a king. Well, that wasn't good enough to promise. The best promise was your seed. Out of your seed. And the crazy thing is that same promise is up to us. So it's not going to just stop here. It's got to keep moving on. That's why we have to train up. The Bible says train up in a child in the way he should go. And if he goes old, when he gets old, he will not depart from him. Why not? Because the Holy Ghost gets inside of him. Remember? David's in a place where he shouldn't have been. Then all of a sudden, he knew what to do. Where his protege or his one before, he didn't go that direction. The flesh man never will cry out to God. He'll try doing it in his own strength until he comes to the end of himself. And then when he tries crying out to God and God doesn't answer him, then when God forbid we don't want chapter 28. What's chapter 28? He goes to the witches, the warlocks. I'm not even going to go down the other road. Because we can run from church to church to church to church to get a word. And God said, I put the word right here in front of you. I told you what to do, and you refused to listen. That's not my saying. That's His saying. How do you know that? Done it, been there. We all got the T-shirts. We buried them deep in our drawers. Every now and then we pull them out, whatever, to dust off something. David and his two wives also have been taken. Ahinoam the Jezreelite and Abigail the widow of Nabal. Abigail the widow of Nabal the Carmelite. How would you like to have that? Every time your name is, another question, God, why every time her name is mentioned, you got to keep bringing up the past? Really? If I get into there, what Brother Varner says, he's called these two the Old Testament and the New Testament. But in the New Testament, why is he bringing up the old? Her old husband. He's dead. He's gone. He's buried. You've been buried in baptism. It's gone. It's done away. Why do you got to keep bringing them up? Leave them in there. You're married to David now. You're married to the king. And David was greatly distressed, for the men spoke of stoning him, because of the souls of them all were bitterly grieved, each man for his sons and his daughter. Here's our famous quote, but David encouraged and strengthened himself in the Lord. I tell you what, this dude had something going on for him. He did. He had to have. He encouraged himself. He strengthened himself in the Lord. I know one thing. When I start having my own pity party, I have to go to the Word. And how that I have to do it is I have to fight my feelings and go to the Word. I have to encourage myself. But I tell you what, that's all good. It really is good. You have to do that. You have to do that. But where I really get encouraged the most is when I come in the midst of the house, in the midst of the family, and there's encouragement to one another, and it starts flowing back and forth through each another. You need the individual, but really, you need the body. Because you get strengthened that way. I've always said it. I'd soon see somebody get blessed and get prophesied than me myself. I really do. Because I know, this is one thing I do know about God. Say, Alex, say you get a word from the Lord. Somebody gives you the word. I can accept that word for myself. That's how the Lord works. It's not just for you personally, although that it is, but it's for the whole house. So I can grab a hold of it and say, hey, that's for me. And the crazy thing is I can say that's for me and my whole house. This is how God works. He don't want a bunch of individuals. And we're not even about that. But he works on an individual basis. He wants you to encourage yourself. He wants you to. But see, David, he was a man David was up above his 600 men. For as great as they were, David was above that. Isn't that amazing? How do you know that? Because he encouraged himself so much in the Lord, he got the 600 men to go with him. He turned their hearts from wanting to stone them to following them. Remember Paul of Tarsus? He went from killing Christians to become one of the greatest of all. The Beauty and the Beast. We all had the beast nature. We all had the beast nature. But once the beast nature has been taken care of, it's the beauty what's coming out. How beautiful are the feet? So that means when it comes to feet, we know what that is. It's what? Walking it out. I was born and raised in the 70s. They had a saying. If you can talkie, you better walkie. Because there's a lot of people who've got a lot of words, but they can't walk it out. And I always prayed, Lord, I don't want to have a lot of words. I just want to walk it out. Really, it's the truth. And then he puts me up here. Go figure. But David encouraged himself in the Lord. This is amazing. Saul went to one place. David said to Abner the priest, Elimelech's son, I pray you, bring me the ephod. And Abiathar brought him the ephod. The ephod, we all know what that is. If you don't, we'll get into it maybe someday. But this is how they communicated to the Lord back then. We don't have to do that now. He's on the inside. He's inside. He's inside. You want to know what the Lord's doing? Talk to him. Well, God, you're not listening. No, I'm listening. You're just not shutting up long enough so you can hear what I'm saying. Oh, I'm talking about me. Ed, my paneled house. My paneled house. Can we say this? Side note. You can have a panel house if you want. God don't want his children in the streets. He don't. He just don't want your heart there. Listen, I built my house. I built my own house. We built this house. We love this house. We work hard on this house. God has nothing wrong with that. He just don't want you to have all your heart wrapped up into it. Because you never know. You might be thinking you're going on a 5-day vacation, and next thing you know, 40 years later, you're still on that vacation. I just told Sister Kara, I said, you know what, it's crazy? I said, I seen this video, and I sent it to her. And literally the man said in the middle of it, he said, he had this guy, he needed a job, and he worked for a big ministry. So he said to the guy, hey, I need somebody, you want the job? And the guy said, I have to pray about it. How many here has to pray about everything you have to do? Seriously. This is the way I was. I was like this. I got to pray about everything. And then I'm waiting for the right, you're right, Mom, I'm waiting for the right answer. And the guy said to the pastor, this gentleman said to, who was offering the job to this guy, he said, what do you got to pray about? He said, did this guy offer you a job? No. Did this guy offer you a job? He said, no. He said, I'm offering you a job. I opened up the door. Now it's up to you to step through the door. And the guy accepted it. And his life has never been the same. It's changed so much. He said not only did that door open up, there was other doors along the way what opens up. So if we're looking for this great big grand door that everything's going to be right there, God don't work that way. He starts you out small in a small door. God will not give you anything that you cannot handle. I don't think I could have handled it, but God put me in a family, became a husband, to become a father who has to raise kids, because now it's all in the training. You can't skip from here right to throne room, David. I have a process of getting you through there. And along this process, there's going to be times you're going to be wondering where I'm at. But that's only for one purpose. That's for you to cry out more to me. And along this road, I'm going to bless your socks off all the way along this road. What do you mean? I'm going to give you a whole city. What if God... You're looking at me, so I'm going to pick on you, Alex. What if God said, where you live? Granby? Oh, bless you. What if God said to you, I'm going to give you the whole town of Granby? See, you shook your head, no. But you don't know. See, that's what we look. We look at the natural things, but God's looking at something different. If God says, I'm going to give you something, he's going to give you, and there's a reason why he's giving it to you, because in the midst of that, there is a jewel, and it's him. I'd take it. I'd take Granby. First thing I do is drop the taxes. Just on my house. Because I'm still selfish. Right, Selectman Ron? He's my buddy. I pray for Brother Ron. He's keeping my taxes as low as possible. He's a fighter. This is, God, this is too natural, but no, this is seriously. Seriously. We need men like Brother Ron in places what can affect us. And I'm not just talking about my taxes. But no, seriously, for everybody. Because you want to know something, if Brother Ron wasn't there, and he didn't have people standing behind him praying for him, you don't want to know what the town of Belchertown would be like? He knows. That's why the Bible says, pray for your leaders. Don't pick them apart. We understand what's happening in Washington, but the reason why we have what we have in Washington is because the church is not doing what they're supposed to be doing. They're too busy looking at themselves. The woe is me's. You want a grander scale? Look at the world. We got wars and rumors of wars. We don't have a clue about what wars are. Really? We heard about what was going on over there, but nobody ever heard about the person getting shot over here in Springfield. What's the difference? Somebody's life was taken. They just got bigger media. It's not even so much that. And this is where it's going to be tough on me. How about the drug dealer or the drug addict sitting on the road underneath a bridge? Same blood covered them as covered us, middle-class families. That's a tough one. That's tough. But literally, Jesus didn't go to people like us because we're already fixed. We're fixed. He went to the sinners and the ungodly. He went to the ones that nobody wanted. Because he knew that his blood was the same for them as it is for us. But I've already got you fixed, so you should be doing what you're supposed to be doing. I'm going to take care of the little harder things. Really, what I tell them, Jesus, you go take care of all the rich folks. You know, the ones who are on a higher scale than Brother Ron over there. The Massachusetts legislators and the governors, and not just Massachusetts. I don't even know how in God's heaven I even got over there. I don't. Too many questions, Brother Bud. Too many questions. So David inquired of the Lord, saying, shall I pursue the troops? Shall I overtake them? This is amazing. And the Lord answered him. But wait a second. David's in a spot where he shouldn't be, and the Lord answered him. So there had to be something what David did for the Lord to answer him. He turned his heart. He cried out to the Lord. He knew he was in a strait. He knew he was in a fix. He knew that something he did affected other people. And he said, God, help us. And the Lord answered him, pursue, for you shall surely overtake them and without fail recover all. This is exactly what Jesus did. God, not my will, but thy will. And he recovered all. What did he recover? Everything that Adam lost, Jesus recovered it all. And guess what? He didn't fail. I don't care what anybody says. I don't care what any of the people outside of this room says. He didn't fail. How do I know that? Because Kathy Walker's got a song, God Did Not Fail. Seriously. He didn't fail. He did not fail. And the crazy thing is, the evil one still thinks that he's winning. And I keep hearing Psalms 2 ringing in my head. He sits in the heavens and he's laughing. He's laughing. But really what he's doing, he's waiting. He's waiting for his son to mature so that he can turn everything back over to its rightful owner. We don't look at it that way, but it's the truth. What did God tell Adam? Have dominion. Where did he say have dominion? In the earth. I love what Brother Willie Henn said about this. One of his questions was, God, if I came out of you, spirit, and I'm going back into you, spirit, why do I have to go through the earth? Let's just cut out the middleman. That's my paraphrase. Cut out the middleman. But then when you turn around and you hear Jesus say, pray this way, in earth, not in heaven. Heaven is not broke. It's earth what's broke. And God's not going to do it. He already did it. Jesus did what he came to do. He did it. Now it's up to us to let him fix it through us. I'm getting down to another question. I got to hurry up. So he's going to recover all. He recovered all. So David went, he and his 600 men with him, and they came to the brook Bezor. There, though, remained who were left behind. I'm going to get back to this. But David pursued, he and 400 men, for 200 stayed behind who were too exhausted and too faint to cross the brook Bezor. It's amazing. You can read all through the Bible. God always has a place of separation of people. He does. And usually it's water. Baptism in his name. The biggest enemy, the biggest fight, is when somebody says, I'm going to get baptized, and they know. How do you know? The Red Sea, the Jordan, Gideon. Remember Gideon? There were so many people who were willing to fight with him. The first question he asked them, all you who are afraid, go home. Can you imagine this? You're standing there all dudded up, ready to go to battle. I'm going to battle. They look at you and said, are you afraid? Well, go home. That wouldn't work in today's, but that's what he did. But that wasn't good enough. God turned around and told him, guess what? There's still too many of you. Basically, this is what God told David. There's too many of you. You got to go by this way. I looked up, Brother Bud, you would like this. I looked up this brook. I'm thinking of a brook, a little brook. It's amazing what this thing will do for you. It gives you a bigger picture. It isn't just a little brook what they had to cross over. It's a whole place in the middle of the desert, and all of a sudden it's luscious and green. Right in the midst of a dried up desert is this brook. I'm thinking brook, right? We got brooks around here. You know, you were thinking small. It's not a brook. It's a large swatch of land. And it was all luscious. And he left 200 of them there. Because why? Because that's what David always did. He always left 200 behind to watch the stuff. If David would have left the 200 behind, who would have known about the Amalekites if they would have took care of them? But see, I'm really jumping ahead. really jumping ahead. David had to do it. He had to take care of them with the 400 because you know why? No flesh is going to enter into the kingdom. And God's going to use it with his number. We got all these magical numbers what are in the Bible, but God has a number. He has a number. And you know what? I pray that God, I'm in that number. Because it is amazing. After they go and wipe them all out, because I'm taking too long. He wiped them all out. I love you sitting there. I really do. I don't know why. I just love you sitting there because it's like we're having a conversation. But seriously, he wiped them all out. The Amalekites. You know what the Amalekites are? You probably don't, but I'm going to explain. They're a descendant of Esau. Esau is a picture of the flesh, your fleshly mind. It ain't entering into the kingdom. This is why God told Israel, when you go to war with the Amalekites, wipe them out. Take them all out. Oh, this is what God saw the first king in trouble because he didn't. He was trying to help God out, and God didn't need no help. Wipe them all out. He had to wipe them all out. And literally, if you start tracing it all through, literally the Bible says way back, that it was from generation to generation. They're going to be fighting against generation to generation. But there is a time that there is no more fight. When was that time? The cross. Took care of it. But literally, David had to wipe them all out. He took them all out. Took them all out. But he got everything back. Everything that the flesh man took, he got back. Everything. He got his wives. He got the children back. He got the old people back. He got everybody back. And then he turned around. Not only did he recoup all of their stuff what were taken, he got all of what the fleshly people had and got to take all their spoils. He got them all. And if you start listening to all the good name, they're saying that all the stuff that's being stored up in the world is getting turned back over to its rightful owner. We can look at it that way. You know what I say? You can have it. I got very little money. I hardly know how to handle it. I could never imagine millions and millions of dollars. I wouldn't know how to do it. You know what I soon have? Him. Because money will flee away. It gets wings. It will fly away. Flesh is as grass. It'll all wither away. It'll all go away. You know what's really crazy? When I was young like you, I thought I was good looking. I was God's gift to all women. Guess what happened? Gravity. Wow. I'm sorry. I don't even know where that came from. But he got it all back. Literally, they got it all back. I really jumped it. But really, I want to get into, there's other things I want to get into next week in this chapter. Because this chapter is loaded. It's filled with stuff. Brother Kelly says it's a picture of what the end time really is. And it shows us restoring everything back. Even down to the point of the Egyptian. I'm not doing any favors, but the Egyptian man that they found, he restored the people in the world back to himself. Think about that. Think about that. So Jesus didn't lose nothing. He gained it all. He gained it all. The crazy thing is, I can't comprehend it. I can't. Amen? Amen. Shall we stand?